Hallo, guten Morgen zusammen. Schön, dass Sie da sind. Hier vorne hat es noch Plätze, kommen Sie ruhig vor. Tun sich keine... Und hier sind auch noch welche. Yeah. A very warm welcome on behalf of Accenture. New digital business models drive new revenues. And that is the topic of the day. Let me ask one question up front. Who does not speak German in the room? Oh, that's a few, so we're going to stay in English. We're just checking. Wonderful. We have a full day on the stage. This is a common event between Accenture and Acatech. And we have really thought through what is the future actually of the business models, the digital business models for the German industry, and actually how do we stay competitive with our lead industries. That is the agenda for the day. We have 4 sections today. The power of smart data and, the smart service Welt. What is the future of the digital business model? That is the first section. The second section of the day is the power of smart data and artificial intelligence. The third section is how do we get started? What do companies do really to get started in actually the new business models? And the fourth section today at the end of the day is about actually the challenges and the opportunities of cybersecurity. So I hope you stay with us. But it's going to be a dense program, and we will kick it off actually with the 2 founders, the 2 people who invented Industry 4.0. Let me welcome on stage Professor Henning Kagermann and Professor Wolfgang Walster. So, how does it work, Henning Kagermann, let me just introduce him very quickly. I think it doesn't need introduction. But he has been running SAP as a CEO, and once he left SAP, he became the president of Acatech, which is basically a think tank across 150 companies, all the universities, supported by the government to think through really what is the digital future of Germany. That are the main projects Acatech is doing. And Wolfgang Walster is, I think he's the boss of the largest artificial intelligence institute in the world. Yep. That's at DFKI. It sits here in Germany. Not many people probably know that because everybody looks somewhere else. It's here, you're running that, and you are part of the Nobel Prize Committee. And many other things you're doing, but I thought that's noteworthy. And so the 2 of you, how to imagine that? The 2 of you, 2010, 2011, we are sitting in a room thinking about the digital future of the German industry, and Industry 4.0 comes up. How did it happen?
Now, first of all, if you look back, I think we started 2009, and in 2008 we had our economic crisis. So from my personal point of view, it was this fear about what's happening if the next crisis kicks in, because we saw revenues dropping 30–40%, companies struggling, not making money any longer. And then you ask yourself, what can we do to be as flexible as possible that will not happen again? Yeah. That was the first point. The second is, Germany was known for being good in embedded systems. And on the other side, we both, let's say, have promoted 2006, if you remember, Wolfgang, at the IT Summit, the Internet of Services and the Internet of Things. And then you ask yourself, okay, it's now 4 years going on. What can we do to combine our strengths and embedded services with this idea of the Internet of Everything? That was a starting point. Might be, Wolfgang, you can explain how we came to the name.
Okay. Yeah. As Henning pointed out, there was a study about cyber-physical systems, the emergence of cyber-physical systems, and we presented this to the government, and then we had this idea, one of the best application areas for cyber-physical systems in Germany could be manufacturing. So that was our guideline. And then I remember in October 2010, I gave a talk to government officials. Henning, I think, had another, you had to go to United States, so I did this, and then I got a little bit negative feedback because people said, cyber physical production systems. This sounds very odd, too complex. We cannot use this on the political arena. So the content was fine, but the name was not good, cyber physical production systems. And then we had a cup of tea together with Professor Lucas in the office of Henning. And this was just before Christmas. And then we had this idea. Actually, I knew that there were already 3 industrial revolutions. So we came up with the idea Industry 4.0, because the 4.0, this notation also implies that, of course, it has to do with IT and software and so on. And so the name was born. And then in 2011, we wrote this was the 1st of April, we first wrote the first paper explaining what Industry 4.0 is. And today, just a couple of weeks ago, I checked again, there are 68,000 publications worldwide about Industry 4.0. Publications in the terms of academic publications. Yeah. Of course, if you go to the IT press, I think it's hundreds of thousands. So the name really is catchy, and today we are proud when you go, for instance, to Silicon Valley, you visit the factory of Elon Musk for the Tesla, you get business cards where people say, we are the task force Industry 4.0, and they even spell this in the German way, with IE.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. That is digital thought leadership from Germany, 2011. But Henning, a year later, you concluded Industry 4.0 is probably not enough to keep the German industries competitive in the world. What happened? Why did you have the reflection that we have to go beyond that?
Frank, we hadn't had the time, but from the very beginning, we proposed 2 projects. One was more, let's say, leveraging the idea of industry of Internet of Things, which more or less is Industry 4.0. Not completely, but from the beginning. And then there was Internet of Services missing. And then you ask yourself, okay, what can we do to drive Internet of Services? What at the end, I think the name Smart Service Welt, what you came up with. And then you remember we met and you asked, okay, what should happen if smart products leave the factory? And we discussed that, and we found it's a good idea to start together the Smart Service World.
Yeah. And I think this is really what the theme of the day is. We have learned how to bring digital to the engineering process, how to bring digital to the manufacturing process, and we've seen a lot of incremental improvements. But we haven't seen the disruption yet. And we think, actually, the disruption will happen not necessarily from the next level of improvement at the shop floor, which is very much needed. That's absolutely important. The disruption will happen when a combination happens between smart products and smart services and new experiences which change the business outcome. Wolfgang, now artificial intelligence comes to play with new experiences. What's the relationship between artificial intelligence and new experiences, how products are used?
I think the main disruption is that both the smart product and the smart services, of course, generate tons of data. And now the challenge is to understand this data, to monetize the data, and to have new business models around smart data. So I think the main aspect of AI is actually that we are now able to automatically analyze big amounts of data, which are not just on the internet, but they are generated in real time by our smart services and by smart products. That's the idea.
I think that's it, and that's what the agenda of the day is. We want to explore together through the whole day today, what is the future of the German industry as a combination, as you said, smart products, smart services, machine learning and artificial-based insights which drive new experiences around the business performance of products. And quite frankly, we are very good to drive incremental productivity improvement, but the next chapter of the German industry is to drive new revenues. And with that, let me introduce the keynote of Henning Kagermann. Looking forward to that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, if somebody can start the first slides, I would be happy. No, that's too much. Good. Yeah, not bad. Perfect. One more. Okay, we are there. It's okay. First slide should remind us to what we have just discussed. Let me add a few points. Industry 4.0 we have discussed. It's now a worldwide brand. It's not only in the Silicon Valley. I was recently in China, and I think the government officials of China say that China 2025 has used Industry 4.0 as a blueprint, which is good. Industry 4.0 was a first step because we just heard it's about smart products, and you will see later that there are nearly no, it's not exclusive, but to 80% smart services without smart products behind. But we need something generating the mass amount of big data we need to create the insights. And to this, let's say, in a way that it's not expensive. You have to do it automatically, and that is through sensors equipped on smart products. On the other side, most companies today believe that the key goal of Industry 4.0 is optimization of production, which is fine, but not the biggest opportunity. It's about services and new business model, and that is a topic of the smart service world. And finally, Wolfgang spoke about it. If you think about smart, artificial intelligence immediately come to your mind. So you need machine learning to come to smart services, but you also need artificial intelligence to fulfill the goal of Industry 4.0, because to produce individualized products under the condition of mass production cannot be done without artificial intelligence, because otherwise the manual intervention is much too expensive. So therefore, the third point, looking for autonomous systems where artificial intelligence is a key driver, is important for both success of Industry 4.0 and the success of smart services. So therefore, if people ask me what's the difference between the third industrial revolution and the fourth one, I normally say the third one was about standardization and automation. The fourth one is about hyper-personalization and the shift from automation to autonomous self-learning systems. Now, I wanted to start with a simple example of, I believe, a very simple smart service which don't need too much technology behind. And it's based on a smart product, in this case a smart bin, which people are using in order, I would say, to improve the traditional replenishment process of C-part products like screws or whatever, to do the entire stuff completely automated. Because I think the smart bin will recognize once a level is reached where not enough material is there, refillment will be done automatically, etc. And therefore the benefits you could see on the right-hand side is obvious, I think, for the producer, in this case of Bossard. It's not only a better sales forecasting and customer relationship, it's indeed more revenue. And they can prove this. So therefore, the question of Frank, can we create more revenue, in this simple example is proven. But it's a very simple one. And you see, the starting point are smart products. And therefore, I normally start the introduction with this old slide saying, what will happen if smart products leave the factory? Here we see smart factory. It's obvious that the smart factory of the future will create smart products. And your question is, there are no smart factories. What's about traditional ones? They can create smart products as well, by the way. And they will collect the data. Wolfgang spoke about it. So we need big data technology around it. If it's very sophisticated, you would combine these data, which are created from a smart product about usage, about environment, etc., with other data, might be data from a customer relationship process, etc. So we end up with smart data with the help of artificial intelligence, and now we can initiate two different innovation cycles, and we can do it with much faster speed than before, which is important because the customer wants nearly real-time responsiveness. And the first one is insight. So we improve our process and our products because we get a real-time feedback loop, which is important. Will this generate revenue? At least it will generate margin. And I guess it will generate revenue as well because you improve products. More important is the second one. The second one is about business model innovation, where you can now deliver a superior user experience. We have enough data, I think, to get money out of new pricing models, which isn't that easy. And the third one is you can expand your business. And I will focus on this one. Now, therefore, I think it's good if we speak about business models to think about what is the difference of a smart service business model to a traditional one. And normally you ask 3 questions. The first is the value proposition. What's the value proposition here? I think it's the most compelling one you can imagine. It's about individualized products and service bundles on demand. That's what you want. Superior user experience, that's what I want. Real-time responsiveness, everything as a service, so moving CapEx to OpEx, and then finally low switching costs. What do you need more as a customer? Nothing. Question is, can we deliver? And the delivery is more or less at the end based on the data, insight from data. The next point is, once you propose this to your clients, the question is, can I make money out of it? So the next question is, what is the profit formula to make revenues and margin? And in this case, it's flexible pricing models. And the point is flexible. You're not dictating the pricing model, you give customers a choice. If you can do it, you give customers a choice. That can be usage-based, that's per time, it can be output-based, per piece, it can be even value-based if you have profit sharing. I will show later on a few examples. And finally, if you are a little bit advanced, you can think about the value of the data you generate, not for indirectly driving revenue, but might be you can use them to sell them to somebody else. And now we come to the final point. Okay, I know what I should do. Do I have the capabilities and the processes in place to generate or to create repeatable and scalable business? That's what it is. And in this case, and this is key, it's about digital platforms. You will not be able to generate repeatable and scalable business without digital platforms. Therefore, they are important. There are a lot of reasons for it. We might discuss it later. And the other point is, how can you as one company create individualized product and service bundles? You can't. Demand can change next day. So you need an ecosystem of complementers. And this ecosystem has to be dynamic because you cannot foresee what customer demand is in 10 days from now. So it has to be open that you can bring in new partners more or less on the fly. And the third point is, as good as artificial intelligence might be, it can only complement and amplify what human brains can do. So you need still smart talents to extract the insight from the data. So artificial intelligence together with smart talent. That's, at the end, the business model. Now, once we understood the business, it's obvious that we come always to nearly the same architecture how smart services are created. And in all cases, you can bring it back to this picture. Let's start from the bottom. We talked about smart products, smart devices, even smartphones, whatever it is, creating the data. That's on the bottom. So one important piece is the manufacturer. Have they equipped their devices? Now we come to the platform, where all these data are brought together, where we, let's say, combine them, where we put, I would say, always newest technology on top to the data. And now it's about blockchain. Artificial intelligence was mentioned. 5 years ago, it was about analytics. That's what the platform brings. And then on top, I think you can have an ecosystem of complementary service providers. That could be app stores, it could be marketplaces, data-rich marketplaces, it could be bots who answer a question, whatever it is. And finally, and that's important, I think it's about the active user. You know it from the B2C market, from the consumer market, because many of you will write recommendations, but it's a very low level, I would say, of co-creation. And I will later on show you a more advanced level of co-creation in the B2B space. But that's more or less the architecture. Now, what I have done to explain, I have picked 4 examples. Why? I have picked 2 German ones because people speak about IoT platform, so Internet of Things platform, which is merging OT and IT. So one from the OT side, from the automation, that is Siemens, one from the IT side, that is SAP. And then I have picked 2, one from Japan and one from China, just to show how people in other countries are thinking about it. So in this case, you know that Siemens has launched MindSphere platform, which is a kind of operating system which could support these kind of smart services, but could also support smart factory, smart city, what you like. And in this case, I think it's a good vehicle for a mid-sized company like Gemmler to say, we are not able, let's say, to build a platform ourselves, but I can link all my products, all my machines to this platform, use the capabilities to extend the service to my client. For example, to avoid unexpected production losses, which is a kind of a smart service. They will change the monetization pay per use, and the question is, what's about revenues? Now, for Siemens it's obvious, the more of those companies join the platform, the more money they make. That's scale. Question for Gemmler? Now, obviously, I think they can now sell additional services to their client. They could even create their own ecosystem around it. Must not be the Siemens ecosystem. So it's a lot of opportunities. The second example comes from SAP, and I've picked a different one, the farming. We know we have FarmNet as well. And I've picked this because here it's not about one company, it's about a business network. It's about managing the business network we need, I think, to bring the best possible services to farmers with all the machine providers for farming, for harvesting, for the cooperatives, let's say, and. So at the end of the day, it's the same structure like we have seen with Siemens, but it's about combining a business network and not just one company. And you see it here on the right-hand side. In this case, the example is not pay per time, but it's pay per hectare, so output. That's what I said. And if you look to the growth potential, it's obvious. I think for the farmers, they get so much insight that they can just, let's say, increase the productivity of hectare. And the supply chain, 25 to 30% of food goes down, by the way, from the acre into the store. So this is one thing. Well, for the platform provider, obvious, always the same. And for the other guys also, because at the end of the day, I think they are the ones selling these additional services to the farmers. Now come to Hitachi. It's about energy. And in this case, the question is if we will rely more on renewable energy, volatility is an issue. We know this. And therefore, the best energy service you can give to utilities or their customers is to say, I'm smart enough, if there are, let's say, abundance of electricity, too much electricity, or it's too low, whatever, I will help you to smoothen this out. Because today something that happens that just brings the, let's say, electricity is too much just, let's say, to warm the earth, which is not very, very smart. So at the end of the day, that can not only be done from the data they get from the consuming and generating devices. That's just one source of data. I need, if I want to trade now, let's say the additional amount of energy available, I need additional data for weather forecasting, that's obvious, but I also need access to the trading market. And that's not that easy. So you see that by enlarging the data sources which help me to generate smart services, you can, let's say, be even broader in the offerings. That's what they are doing. You see the monetization is pretty advanced. It's about profit sharing. In the meantime, you will see already people thinking about guaranteed profit, which is, I think, from my point of view, more or less the upper end. And the growth potential is obvious because for Itachi it means that they can at the end sell complete energy management to the client. Now I come to a point I have recently seen in China. It's Fosun, it's a company conglomerate in China. And I liked it because you see that the vision is much broader than most of the examples we see here. In our example, you could see it's either about health, it's about energy, it's about production. In this case, I think the vision is pretty high. It's about happiness of consumer. What makes you happy? Wealth, yes, money, health, leisure, all those type of things. So here a company is trying to enter or to build an ecosystem across all industries which help consumers to be happy and links them directly to the producers of the services. So the focus is on the ecosystem, not on the platform. Obviously, they will support all of this by one platform. But if you speak to them, it's not about the platform and the technology. It's about how do we create the ecosystem. And the vision goes beyond what I have just said. It starts by acquiring companies, and in particular those companies which gives them rich consumer data. The more consumer data the company has, the better. Acquire them. Next is obvious, through the platform, applying data analytics, and then finally connecting them and rebuilding the supply chain. Pretty advanced. And I just brought it up because I felt this broad vision reminded me to 2000, by the way. In 2000, when the first e-commerce bubble was bursting, we had ideas and we were building marketplaces already, Siemens and SAP together, by the way, which were around life events. So a baby is born, somebody is dying, and bundle all the services in a portal for these events. It's very similar here. Okay. Now, finally, I wanted to speak about 3 barriers I'm seeing. The first one is connectivity. This all sounds easy, it isn't. I think smart products is one thing, but we have to connect them to the platform. And if you look to brownfield today's factories, you see here what should have happened. I've taken an example from KUKA, where they smarten existing production cells necessary if you bring robots in. And it's not just about adding additional sensors. There are also connectivity boxes you can buy today. And then finally, you have done all of the things. You have to upload all the data into an edge cloud. So you have to balance between how much data should be processed locally, how much centrally in the cloud, etc. You can imagine that IT security is a big issue here because now you connect data from somebody else to a big company, so we'll not talk about it here. But the benefits are obvious. You increase transparency and the overall efficiency of the equipment. The second is co-creation. Many people are speaking about the digital twin in the context of Industry 4.0. This is nothing else than a virtual representation of all real objects, everything, every component, every device, everything. Once you have done it, you have a complete picture in a cyberspace. And what you can do is you can simulate the entire production process. You can even, let's say, use these and send the digital twin of a machine you are asked to produce to your client and let him simulate on this simulated machine his simulated product he wants to bring it to market. That's co-creation, because you get immediate real-time feedback what you should change in the machine because you really built them. And that is, I think, the key at the end in the B2B space. Finally, the third one, everybody is speaking about technology. I also like to speak about technology, but the real issue is the organization, is transforming the business, the change management. Just want to remind us, first of all, it's a cultural point. If everything will be delivered as a service, you transform a company from a product company to a service company. And I know what it means. He just mentioned at SAP when we, in my time, for the first time, tried to develop a product completely run in the cloud. And the first time, you ask all developers in, and they show the product, and then you ask, okay, show me the manual, how to install, etc. You see 10 folders, and then you just can say, that's not possible, it's just too expensive. Please design the product in a way that might be a third of one folder. That is so simple. So this shift is not easy. The second one is, from my personal experience, even worse. We all look for more revenues. Yeah, that will come in the future. But if I go for pay-per-usage, etc., revenue will go down. If you, instead of selling cars, lease cars, for 4 years your revenues goes down. Then business will go up, but cost stays there. So you can promise to the capital market that your revenues will go up, but you cannot show it for the next 2 or 3 years. So I know the answers I got at that time, that says come back in 3 years. So matching this, shifting traditional business in a new business will take time and has to be balanced. Organization flexibility, agile working, everything IT companies are doing enters now traditional business. People are not used to work this way. Ambidextrous structures, managing the old business in parallel with the new one. It's a big challenge for leaders. To the right-hand side, if you look to regulation, yes, we want to avoid over-regulation because nobody knows where the future is. But on the other side, we have to regulate. It's about secure data transmission. If you are in China and you watch in a workshop that the EU representatives are explaining what their regulation is for cross-border transfer, and then you look to the faces of the Chinese officials, then you know that we have the long way to go for those things. But we need it now. Industry 4.0 will not work without cross-data, let's say, data transfer. So it's a lot of topics we have to solve. Now, coming to my final slide, yes. As a summary, there was a question at the beginning, and my answer is, first of all, we achieved a lot, because today you see a variety of competing platforms in the market, which is good. Not all of them will survive, which is a bad thing, because it means for small and mid-sized companies, it's not easy to make the right pick. What should I use? But that's what competition is all about. We also have seen a lot of smart service showcases in all sectors, across all industries, more or less in all countries. It's good as well, you can learn. All of them introduce new business models, so they have understood the idea of new business models. And all of them show significant potential for growing revenues. So what's missing from my personal point of view is the final step. It's now about scale. We have to see in the next years that people can scale, that they can build scaling large ecosystem, dynamic ecosystems for scalable and repeatable business. I think we will see it. Thank you very much.
Henning. Thank you. And I think a real inspiring speech. If it looks at what Henning just said, platforms will be at the core of the business models of the German industry. Yeah. And we have to really think through that, what that means. And once you have the platforms, I pick up the Fosen because I like the...
That's good, no?
You know, we're not talking about the better product. We're talking about an experience which brings you wealth and happiness. Apply that to a radiology machine. Are you making better pictures, or is your vision to have healthy patients? So this can be translated actually to our industrial products. And then you talked about the transformation, which is extremely difficult because the new doesn't scale yet. The old dominates, but you know you have to go there. Henning, we will have a lot of opportunity to talk on the panel in a few minutes. But I thought, you know, this really sets the tone of the day. We have a huge shift ahead of us. Yep. And now we're going to hear from two leaders in industry, different segments, how to really do that transformation. And let me welcome Dr. Markus Pertelwieser, the CDO, Chief Digital Officer of the Private and Geschäftskunden AG of Deutsche Bank on stage. Markus, welcome. Here we go.
Thank you very much.
Markus, you're part of the management board and you have the tall order. Your job is to create digital services, transform the business model, integrate Postbank, and you have created actually a digital factory as a vehicle to do that. We're looking forward to your experience.
Okay. Thank you, Frank. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Great pleasure to be here. Frank, thank you very much for this great topic, because I personally believe that digital will drive new business models, and then new business models will drive new revenues. And I think that's the right question. So I think we are now speaking about digital for a couple of years. and it was very much focused on user experience, about automatization. I think that's all true, but the key question is what could be these kind of new business models? And from our point of view, services, it's a very important intermediate step, but the key question will be how will the platform economy will impact banks. So first of all, let's start with a more holistic view on the overall industry. I'm in banking, and the most important measure, I think both in the classical world, but also when we are in digital, is how profitable is the sector, what is about the return on equity. And overall sector profitability is somewhere between 8 and 9%, and there are lots of experts out there. I think it's fair to say there are even more experts on digital than on football in Germany in the meantime. So you can argue it's a bit more, it's a bit less. It's a bit more, it's a bit less, but overall I think it's common sense that digital will somehow give first of all pressure on the overall profitability of the sector because margin will decrease, there will be new kind of competition. But I think the sunny side of this chart is on the right hand side, that most of the experts agree that there's only one big opportunity to grow the sector and also to grow the profitability, and this is, it's called beyond banking revenues. That's a kind of new services. And if you take a bit longer perspective on the banking industry, say let's start in 2007, which is from my point of view the point of time where digital also started in banking. Unfortunately, the sector was busy with a couple of different topics, so the main focus now is for 2 or 3 years for all the bankers on digital, that we have not spent this time in how to come up with new kind of business models. It was more about driving efficiency, and I think therefore there is the great opportunity for us and for the industry. What does this mean in terms of the strategy? And I think it's very important that digital is not an upgrade of the IT. Sure, we have to upgrade the IT, but basically it's a revolution of the business strategy, of the business model. Looking back, it's fair to say that many banks just did their business with the existing customers, with the existing business. And existing business means you are doing investment securities business, you are doing deposit business and credit business. So first of all, digital is extremely helpful to come up with new products. One of my favorites is multi-banking. So given that most of you have a couple of banking relations, digital will help just to have one digital house bank, because digital will help just to have everything in one place. Secondly, there are some very valuable products in the banking industry, like discretionary portfolio management. In these days, only available for 500,000 or 1 million. Thanks to digital, everybody's talking about robo. You can get this product from 3,000, 5,000 euros on. So great opportunity. And I think it's what's also very important, the market is still very fragmented. And in the past, it was very important to have a huge branch network that you cover almost the entire Germany. Thanks to digital, it will be much easier to win new customers. I personally don't believe that there will be a winner takes it all in 2, 3, 5 years' time. Therefore, the market is too fragmented. But I personally believe there will be a strong consolidation driven by digital and also by the new businesses. Moving on the x-axis to the right, I think this is absolutely necessary, but that is not sufficient. So the key question for us is, how can we come up with new businesses? How can we monetize all the data? How can we monetize all the insights we have our customers? But also, what is the strategic play along the value chain? And for me, the most important thing is on the top right side, how can we become a kind of life companion? Because if you think about how many WhatsApp, how many Instagrams, how many information you receive a day, and I would expect that financial service information is only a very, very tiny part. And many of you would say, oh, that's good because I don't want to spend so much time on my financial issues, right? So therefore, banks also have to increase their value chain. They have to come up with new kind of models. And the way how we did it, and I think Professor Kagermann already elaborated on that one, I think it's fair to say that all industries that have a strong focus on efficiency, that are going through a kind of crisis, they going very much on being more efficient in terms of production. That's in the middle part of the chart. I think this is still necessary, but it's not sufficient, because this is a pure efficiency game, and digital will drive all the businesses to a very strategic discussion. Either you become a platform, then you have to move to the right-hand side, or you're more kind of an infrastructure play. And we as a Deutsche Bank, we clearly decided to go for the platform play, to move to the right end, because customer relationship, this is the highest source of value we have today. It's about brand, it's about trust, and I think which is also very important, which are core assets, a bank, and I think that's fair for all the business, do we have that we can strengthen by digital. So I think it's very important to have always a perspective that digitalization means strengthening your strengths, like the identity management, the risk management. So this is very much about expertise, how you can leverage into the digital world. One question I got asked very often is about what about the fintechs? And I think fintechs are great for the sector because in the meantime we have a double-digit number of very successful fintech corporations, and they helped us to be much more innovative, to be quicker, to come up with new solutions. And therefore, it's very important not only to talk about cooperation, but to make them happen. The only exception is on the right-hand side. I think for every business in the digital, the customer relationship is of utmost importance. And this is one thing that, by the way, all successful business models have in common. They have the customer relation because when you interact with the customer, you better understand the customer and you can come up with better products. So everybody who is moving between the customers and the bank, these are competitors, regardless whether they are fintechs or they are tech players or they are classical competitors. That's a kind of the strategic value chain plane, which was the underlying belief for how we believe that new business models will evolve over time in a digital world. First question is, what is the core of a digital bank? And I think typically you would answer the question with, it's the balance sheet. I don't believe that a digital bank will have a balance sheet going forward, not in retail or in commercial banking. Maybe in the large corp business or in investment banking, but also digital will move there. The key question, what is the USP? What can customers get from a bank that's everything at a single glance and click anywhere, anytime? So it doesn't matter whether your account is with Deutsche Bank or with one of the competitors. You can just see all the data on your mobile app. And by the way, Deutsche Bank mobile app next week or beginning of December will have the functionality that you can even do transactions in the account of our competitors. So that's all moving together in one place. And therefore, we believe it's so important that for all the banking staff and probably beyond, it's crucial to be this. In Germany, we would call it digitale Hausbank, because there will be only one provider where people are doing their financials, because all market research show people have more than 100 apps on their smartphone. They are typically using 10, and there's not more than one app that are handling the financial stuff. So this is the first or one of the most important points. Second is, when it comes to solution, then I think we are in the platform economy. Let me give you an example. At Deutsche Bank, as in any other bank, you can buy deposit products. In Deutsche Bank, since half a year, you can also buy deposit products from other banks. So this was a very important step, and Professor Kagermann elaborated on his last slide on the organizational transformation. If you're talking to your product manager that are responsible for deposit business, look, we open up our platform to third-party offering. That's a huge step, especially in mindset, but also in the way you are doing product management, because you are moving from a B2C business model to a B2B2C business model. And the same logic will apply in a digital bank also to other products like securities investment products, but also to insurance products. 10 years ago, many people spoke about bank assurance. That was the combination of banking and insurance. Didn't work that well, from my point of view, because there was mainly a mindset issue for the people that were working in the branches and in the insurance agency, because either they are bankers or they are insurance agents, and none of them is dealing with both stuff. Here also digital will help to come up with a new kind of platform, and then it's the most important thing, who has the access to the customer, who has the data, and who can provide the best kind of advisory. And then the third level, this is the beyond banking ecosystem stuff. How can we bring new innovation to our customers? And we believe that should not be done mainly by the bank. Here, banks can provide the framework. They can provide a kind of an API. By the way, we launched yesterday our open API, where we have more than 1,000 developers who are doing innovation on that API, which is somehow curated then by Deutsche Bank. There are standards in terms, for sure, for data security, also for cyber security. And so we can bring new kind of innovations to our customers. And then this is beyond banking. These are services you as a customer will use on a daily basis. Why is this business model so attractive for us? I think first of all, it's very capital and cost efficient because you don't need a balance sheet, you don't have equity in your business model. Second, it's a rebalanced business mix. Banks' P&L are typically driven by interest income, which in a low interest environment is somehow a big challenge. This is much more commission-based. And third, I think that's the most important, you have so many pockets for growth. In all three dimensions, you can win customers just by multi-banking. You have new offerings in the financial service industry, providing platforms. And thirdly, you have the beyond banking services. In terms of delivery, I'm realistic. The omni-channel access will probably be the right approach for the first and for the second layer, because here people decide either to go online, mobile, by branch. In the third level, and that was the topic before, I think here especially artificial intelligence will kick in, but also on the second level, because we at Deutsche Bank believe if artificial intelligence will be able to somehow replace the diagnostic in the medical area in a couple of years, for sure this will also happen in the financial service industry. So advisory in branches will be very much about relationship management, or not only in the branches, in all the channels where you have this kind of service. One very important example on that one is, from my point of view, the digital identity. I think every industry is talking about digitalization. My personal view is many industries are not digitalized at all, because one crucial question, which is more or less valid for all of the industries, is the portable digital identity, or like it was called before, also the twin. For example, if you have a banking account with one of our competitors, you want to open up a banking account with Deutsche Bank, you have to do the full legitimization process. The same holds true, by the way, if you're doing an insurance product with any of the insurance companies, or if you're a fan of car sharing, if you do it with one provider on the one weekend, you are going to the other one on the next weekend, you have to run through the full legitimization process again and again. And interestingly, it's not only limited to the classical industries, even when you are talking to mobility providers or to sports event organizations, all have the same question. So we started an initiative that is called VerifyMe. That's an acronym for VerifyMe. It's not done by Deutsche Bank alone, because I personally believe that such a big platform, and maybe even the digital identity platform, can be somehow become an essential infrastructure, so the platform for the platform economy can never be done by one single company, because most important is that you have a broad array of use cases. Therefore, we approach, for example, Allianz, Lufthansa, Telekom, Daimler, and here Axel Springer, and also on the technical side, Giesecke & Devrient and Bundesdruckerei, in order to come up with this kind of service. You can name it in the first step a single sign-on, but it will also have an embedded payment functionality. There will be embedded additional data services, fully compliant with European regulation, because this is very important that such a platform will be never limited only to Germany. We have to come up with European platforms. And I think this is, even from a national point of view, so important that we are building up platforms. I think there's only one platform in Europe. If you believe in the professors from the MIT, they have done a big research. There are lots of platforms either in the US or in Asia. There's only one in Europe, that is SAP, because they have a kind of a B2B platform. And I think everybody can see how successful this business model is. And so this is a first step from a joint venture perspective. The Family and Friends pilot is about to start now, so the go live will be in the first quarter, and we are really confident that here we are about to build a platform starting in Germany. Overall, when it comes to new business model, I think it's so important that you have in mind you need a state-of-the-art research and development. And this is a combination of research. Therefore, we, for example, have built up a couple of innovation labs where new innovations come from. Here are, for examples, take the Silicon Valley. There are our experts on artificial intelligence. We are doing this jointly with IBM, for example. But also on the development side, Frank mentioned the digital factory. This is one unit we have built up about a year ago, where we have 450 people, business and IT colleagues, internal and externals, people from fintechs who are doing these innovations at a large scale. And I think that is the biggest achievement we have done in terms of new business model, that we have now this facility where we have these capabilities to be extremely innovative. And overall, let me summarize, I personally see digitalization as the biggest opportunity for the industries, probably for the last 10 or 20 years. It will definitely change the industry at scale, and the platform or the challenge to build this new business model, I think this is so interesting, why I see there is a great opportunity there. We are at the beginning of the journey, that's also a part of it, and to be part of the ecosystem, I think that's the future of the industry. I say thank you very much, and I'm ready for a question, I think, after the next presentation. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And I think, you know, Markus, what you just described is actually, you know, the big vision, happiness and wealth. You talked about the new digital core for the bank, which will be a platform. You talked about the best financial solutions. It's about the outcomes, hyper-individualized, and you talked about innovation ecosystems, open APIs. So I think you're bringing the vision to life. Thanks for that. And you know, this is really where the banking industry is going. But now let's hear, what does the Mittelstand do? What do the hundreds of companies do who are in the Mittelstands manufacturing, who are basically thinking through, where's my place in this digital future? And let me welcome Dr. Eberhard Veit.
Schon wieder. Hello.
Hi, Eberhard. Eberhard, you have been a CEO of Märklin, of Kercher. You have been running Festo, one of the most traditional and innovative German industrial companies. And you are a thought leader in taking all these companies digital. After you left, now you are sitting on so many supervisory boards, and you are a digital strategy advisor. What do you tell these Mittelstand CEOs where they should take the company? Looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much. So, first of all, I'm very happy to accompany this meeting because I think it's really very important that this Mittelstand, this German Mittelstand, which has been always a success factor from the past, are also in this course of digitalization. Everybody of the companies, especially the family-owned companies, well know that there are external but also internal needs. Everybody is aware about that, but why is so slow moving ahead with the digitalization? So what I said, the companies need for the internal needs a sprint. Each letter means a special thing I want to explain you. And on the other side, for the external needs of companies, I think we have to be agile. So let's go through this sprint first, the internal side, what the companies, the family-owned companies, the so-called German Mittelstand have to do. So first letter of S, sprint, is an S, and I mean there is a spirit and speed needed. And this begins, and that's the reason I'm in the supervisory boards and in these boards, that the owners and the supervisors, they really have to accept that digitalization is no way around. And very often, thank you, and very often, I think the miss is that the owners and the CEOs are not driving the company as fast and in the spirit they need. Second is the participation of sprint, P. I think participation of digitalization means that everybody has to participate. Financial departments, all departments, especially also the R&D and everybody, as well as the company parts of sales and also the legal. So participation of all organizations, on the other side, from the hierarchy down to all and the old and young ones. The R stands for to rely. And there is a big problem actually. Today, companies are very successfully doing their business. Everybody is occupied. And you know what it means? all resources, all people are working on the success of today and from the past. So they have no time for digitalization. And I'm always challenging them that this company has to go along with their, let's say, actual digitalization. And on the other side, I think everybody speaks about the digitalization is already gone for the German and the European companies. I do not think so. I think the B2B business, let's say, for industries is still open race. And I think European and German companies are in a good shape. And what I'm missing also within my job of being in 9 supervisory board of big companies, I think we have a little bit the German style of doing step by step and the best, not doing just do it culture. I'm just coming from China because I'm in the group of China 2025. And I know they are doing really very fast, not perfect, but they are doing fast. A lot of German Mittelstands companies, they do like to do all from perfect and scale it down, then just starting. But it's different in the digitalization, just start, just do it. So rely on a new strategy to run. Coming to the I from sprint, what does it mean? I think we are very successful in companies with a so-called 4I culture. Intuitive products, intelligent products, integrative products, and internet-based products, 4I products. We are also having a good training, but there we have still lacks in the companies to train people on digitalization. But what we didn't have actually is about the business model. So the business model is really questioned, and we are just in the German Mittelstand, in the companies I know very well, more product and technology oriented than business model oriented. Coming to N, and this is a very important part you should take with you, the need. I think it's really something, and this picture shows you my former company Festo. We took this very complex Industry 4.0 or digitalization, all headlines, and we broke it down to just do it, to start. And we have been forced also by products just start with a lot of, let's say, enthusiasm into this, just do it. And I think the need from theoretical to practical is just as an evolutionary process. And therefore, a CEO, the head of a company, has to start, not to wait for all has to be perfect. Last but not least, I think the internal factor is the trust. A lot of skepsis are in some companies about digitalization. They just see the opposite side, what could be a problem. And therefore, I think we have to generate a feel-good factor in a company. We have to generate a motivation for the employees, and we have to say them, and this is what we are doing on the platform in the Industry 4.0 also, with a lot of activities, that we are working on new compensation models to trust that new compensation models will come and they will help also to get a valued compensation. Coming now to the agile. Sprint was inside. I'm coming from the view to the outside, agile. And there I have broke it down also by a nice word. I name it agile. Each word has a meaning, how I teach in my supervisory boards or my consulting boards. I think A stands for architecture-based products, and G stands for general new business models, which the companies have to follow. And I would say also innovation is the E from agile, and learning and education. I think it's really excellent what I saw at Accenture in Munich, how they broke down all these items, helping companies to find their agile style. And this picture shows that we have to be loud, that we have to be very loud around our companies, that it's very important that we, the companies, we have a lot of good products to make advertising. This picture shows, by the way, what Henning Kalgemann shows. There was the handover of Industry 4.0, and this drone has been falling down, and the reason was very simple, because his security destroyed all the network, and the digitalization doesn't work. That's true. So, coming to the A, architecture-based systems. I think one thing is that Mittelstandscompany, these VDMA companies, ZVE companies, they have to find their products more intelligent. From intelligent products to self-learning systems must be prepared. Second, I think the companies are very well in collecting data within their products, but they do not use these products for general new business model. So we have to raise the question in family-owned companies. We must start agile business model because the products are really prepared. So that means we have a portfolio of products which are intelligent, but we are not in the family-owned company able from products to move up to the business model, to the general business models. That's really the problem. But as long as the companies earn a lot of money with their products, they are not forced enough to climb up this pyramid. So, another point is, not each product must be digital. Also, smart products, like you can see here from this chameleon, is not digital, but intelligent and smart. So, what I'm always saying also to companies is, not everything has to be digital, but it should be adaptable to digital business. And last but not least, I'm coming to the LE from agile means, I think the products are really learning products. They are with artificial intelligence, and they are really intelligent. Like you can see here with Gestik technology inside, with brain interfaces. So products, this is a German Mittelstand, innovative products are coming up, learning products. But getting out to learning systems, self-learning production lines like you can see here. And last but not least, to train people for learning people 4.0 means to work with these systems. This is still a gap. This LE, you can see also she tries to get trained on the products, and she did it, and she got it. So I think for me, to summarize all means the family-owned company, the Mittelstand, the so-called success factor from the past, they have to climb up a new spirit, internal, and they have to find on the other side an agile portfolio to the products, which helps them to be more successful. But as long as we are successful and harvesting, like actually we are harvesting from the past products, I think this breaks us a little bit down in our activities. Thank you for listening.
And Eberhard is ahead of time, as usual. Eberhard, you haven't talked about manufacturing. You're advising, I think, 7 or 8 supervisory boards of manufacturing companies. Your presentation hasn't been really about manufacturing, it has been about culture change. And maybe we take that for the discussion. Henning and Markus, can I ask you to join us on stage? Let's have a conversation about what we just... can we share this one? Yeah.
We can share this one.
Excellent.
So I see your questions.
You know, I think Henning laid it out, what the digital future of the German large companies is about. And you had specific examples, but you know, Henning, let me just go to my first question. Sorry. Here we go, Henning. You know, you are sitting as well on a series of supervisory boards, and now we have this great vision about the smart products, the smart services, and the better business outcomes. But when you sit on a board of a company and you're trying to advise the direction change, what is you observing? Is it easy for the companies to adapt that digital future?
No, it's not, in particular not for large ones, because people see the urgency, start with a digital agenda. Normally it's more bottom-up, so collecting ideas from the company, which takes time. And in some cases, we find after a year or after 18 months a lot of good ideas. Now it's a question to pick the right ones. Question is, have companies in the meantime being strong enough to change the culture? I know companies which say we are very traditional. How bring an innovation culture, as you said, into the company takes time. And then finally, I think what we discussed, showing scale. I haven't seen nowhere so far. So I see a lot of projects, good stuff, but scale, quick, 150% every year, exponential growth, that's still missing from my personal experience.
So basically you're saying actually everybody gets it.
Yes.
But getting on the way,
Yeah.
accelerating, adding scale is difficult.
It's difficult.
Markus, you in your company, you're competing with the fintechs. People who are portrayed to being innovative, having scale, being fast. You set up the Digitalfabrik to be different. Why did you do that?
I think for a couple of reasons. I think first of all, when you are doing a big transformation on digital, it's much more about doing the right thing and less on making things right. So need a different environment where people really have the opportunity to try and error. And I think that was the first reason why we brought people together. Second is, it's a rather easy one. People are much more productive when they are sitting in one building or in one room than they are located across a couple of buildings. And so we somehow also overcome the old organization. There's the IT and there's the business. We just brought people back together. Third, we need somehow an environment where we can collaborate with the fintechs you mentioned. And that's why basically the three reasons why we came up with the Digital Factory. And overall, I think it's just very attractive for our existing people, but also for new people to join a bank on their digital journey.
Fintechs, are they real competition or can you keep up with them? Or are they adding to your experience?
Clearly the last one. I think most of the fintechs, and that's in the word fint and tech, are a combination of finance and technology, and most of them started as a B2C business. In the meantime, most of them converted to B2B because I think they have two challenges. First, they have no brand, and brand means trust, and trust is still very important in banking. And second, they have an issue on access for customers. This is what we can provide. On the other hand side, they made us much quicker. So this is very often a win-win situation. There are some fintechs out there. They say we want to compete for the customer. They are still competitors. But our focus goes clearly to the other banks and also the big tech players and not so much versus the fintechs in terms of competition.
So basically, Digitalfabrik is your vehicle to be extremely fast and you're building an ecosystem. Ecosystem of players, of fintechs to really outpace. And I think that is actually not a technology question. And that gets me to the question to Eberhard. Eberhard, a lot of your presentation was about cultural change. Basically opening the horizon about sprint and being agile. You talked about, it's not about being the better manufacturer, which we have to be. It's about rethinking actually what we could do on top. But how difficult is that? Driving change, and how difficult is it to get a Mittelstandscompany started with digital platforms?
First of all, I think it's really a top-down process. That's very, very important. And so I changed radically all the supervisory board meetings where I'm in. So the traditional meeting to go up and down the figures and looking to the back, what has been wrong, I changed the culture of these meetings and the behavior of these companies from radical. I said, we are discussing maximum 1/5 about the past. and I name it the health map. Health, about the company, if it's healthy, if it's going on the right track. So I named it health map. And 4/5, I'm discussing about the future, and I name it strategy map. And therefore,
Which one there?
first is the health map. How healthy is the company, and strategy map means
Stretching
for the-
map.
Yeah,
Yeah, I get- okay.
for the future. And I think the figures and the past could be read, but it's really also a cultural change from the thoughts in a company, also in the board meetings, to change to these thoughts. And there are a lot of lacks in there. And on the other side, what I'm also do not like is if companies have chief digital officers who are responsible for all. I think the CEO of a company is the head of the digitalization process around the companies. The CFO, the CIO is for me the most important guy who doing the changes itself, but the culture is from the CEO.
So you say if the CEO is not digital or not digital-minded, we have a problem.
Exact.
How many are digital-minded?
Or
What do you think?
in Germany, I think we
Between us.
have not. We have, everybody knows how to operate his hand.
So they're all digital smartphone
They're
users.
smartphone users, but for the companies, they are not, let's say, so powerful that they are changing the companies. In all companies I know, I think there is a lot of gaps to be fulfilled in the future.
Should we do a training, a CEO training for the German Mittelstandscompany, what the digital future is really about?
I think in general not, but I think it's also a matter of let's say, powerful changes to because a lot of us, I was also a CEO, are afraid about this digitalization and if they are good enough to change. And so far, I think everybody has to start and have to be trust that he can do it.
But it starts top down.
Exactly.
It's not bottom up.
Nevertheless, no.
I think that is I think that's an important message. You know, if the top of the company doesn't believe it,
Especially also
it doesn't happen.
the owners, I think, because if they are treated by just figures from the past and also the remuneration systems of the companies are only look to the back, I think that's totally wrong.
I think that is a theme, cultural change. We heard it from Markus. You saying actually it starts from the top. Henning, we have been in China together 2 weeks ago in Shanghai, and we do recognize platforms are the core, the ecosystems making the difference. And now we are riding on the wave of success in Germany of the past. What is, when you start comparing Germany against China, if we have seen the CEO of Xiaomi on stage who said, I'm going to be the winner. What is your analysis in terms of how do we compete as economy, in terms of vision, in terms of spirit and innovation on the digital future? If you compare ourselves against the world, China, Asia, US.
China has an advantage. If it's an advantage for a long time, we will see. One advantage is this large homogeneous market like the US. I think that will help them to build their own IT industry in all areas, which we can't do. They will do it. Second is they can protect their market, and they do it. We can't do this. So in addition, that comes in addition. So these top-down, which helps them to gain speed. On the other side, I'm not sure if at the end, the point Ebert was mentioning will help the Chinese at the end. So in technology, yes. Gaining market share, yes, but it's also about culture in the company. It's about processes and. So I don't know at the end of the day, if not, I think in cultures where you give more freedom for creativity, more individualism will at the end survive. We will see. It's two models. I don't know. If you look to the US, I think you know the advantages. We must not talk about it. I think they have captured the B2C market completely. They have so much money that they can buy the entire German DAX if they want, so get the knowledge in the B2B market if they want. It's not about gaining no knowledge. So I believe in Germany it's the chance to shape the B2B market. I still believe that because there is a lot of domain knowledge here which we don't see in particular in the other two big markets so far. Japan has a lot of domain knowledge, but they are comparable to us, and Japan has a disadvantage that they are still a closed economy, so they are not open enough to go for global standards, etc. And therefore, my hope is that we will, let's say, drive B2B in Germany, both from business and from regulation. That's the final point. So far, it's still open where the regulation for B2B will end. Our politicians are talking about the B2C regulation. I think it's a mistake because that's done. Yeah. The question is now, where B2B is, let's say, evolving, it would be better in parallel to bring a smart, intelligent regulation to the market which helps us and exports this regulation as well. So that is a chance, I see.
I think that's a very interesting thought because you're bringing something into the discussion which is important. You know, typically Europe regulates that we can't do stuff.
Yeah.
And what we are seeing, other markets are regulating for business success. Clear advantage of their own business system. And that is something we are competing against. It's not a level playing field. And you say we could probably do or rethink that in a different way.
I remember I had a discussion with Frau Nahles on stage, and they were also always looking to B2C. And then she asked me, tell me, what do you request? And I said, why not, for example, looking for interoperability between platforms? Yeah. Why not for portability of data between platforms? I think many years ago, in Germany, the regulation came up and told us, okay, in a day for the utilities, if you remember, it should be possible for you as a consumer to switch your contract from one utility to another. That wasn't possible before. It's a smart regulation. Those type of things, nothing else. And that would help a lot, I believe.
And a level playing field.
And a level playing field.
Absolutely. You know, I think that is something we have to be really mindful of. We are not competing against ourselves in Germany. We are competing as an industry, and you said it, to get on the way. And for that, Markus, we need ecosystems. You talked about API. You talked, I think, about 1,000 developers for API. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Why is API so important? What is it? You know, what is it in the context of a bank, and what is the business potential? We know what APIs are, I guess. This is an IT conference, but what is the potential for the bank?
For us, the great potential is to become part of an ecosystem, and I think everybody is talking about becoming more customer-centric, about coming up with the solutions customers are looking for. And I think here it's very important for an incumbent to be realistic about what we can bring on our own and where do we need strong partners. And I think ecosystem is all about orchestrating your partners. And the API gives us the opportunity to cooperate with other big companies, but also to be part of this ecosystem where you have so many very innovative people you don't have in big organizations. And that was the reason why we, and somehow also fits to the question before, when the regulator said, okay, there will be PSD2 and you have to open up the banking infrastructure, we said, okay, we can now just comply to regulation, what we have to do anyway, or why don't we think about how can we really make a strategy out of it? And therefore the API just plays a crucial technology role, but more important is the mindset behind that we are about building a kind of a product management that is the contact person for all these developers, providing the data they need, providing the security standards the customers are asking for. And I think here a bank can come into play because we can provide infrastructure, but also the data security. And this is somehow, I think, now a big opportunity. Whether we will make it or not, I think this still has to be seen. But in the way you change product management, or in a big organization having classically product management today, and now are going out to a B2B2C business model, this is, in my point of view, one of the biggest changes we have ahead of us.
I think that is an interesting thought. You are rethinking, actually. You just repeat your words. You're orchestrating your partners. That's ecosystem management. And APIs give you the way to basically include products of your partner in your own products. And that is new. So from my MaxBlue account, I can see all my financial transactions regardless of which sub-bank they are managed.
This you can already see today, because in Germany we have an HBCI standard. Not many know that, so the PSD2 is not that new in this regard. And we will not show you all the features in the banking account. I think we will separate where we have products, where we can do a stronger curation, and where we are more doing a cooperation with the externals. That a bit depends on the customer experience and the customer expectation.
So ecosystem is not giving knowledge away. Ecosystem is about orchestrating your partners, orchestrating and adding the products of your partners to your own portfolio. I think that's a smart way to think about it. You know, and Eberhard, if I take that to the factory floor, it's different. But you talked a lot about, as well, in the pictures you show, you talked about the people. How do you take the people on the journey? You talked about the Lernsysteme 4.0. Festo is known for learning and training systems. You know, it's not about having the best products. It's about taking the people with you. What are the tricks? What have you learned to take the people with you on the journey?
So my personal opinion is that for the success of the future, it's still 50% the products and the systems you are creating, but the other 50 are the people. Yeah. And if I'm looking to Germany, we are investing heavily in technology, in products and so on, but I think we are not investing enough for our people learning and training. And my former company, and I was really a fan about that we took people by so-called learning factories. We created factories where disciplines could be trained hands-on on this new agenda of digitalization. And we did it also in Baden-Württemberg, in other countries in Germany, to schools. Get people based on their digital experience, transfer it to the production, to the technology, business to business. And I think that's a big gap which is still open, where we could do even more. And comparing continent, I think, looking to Germany, we have still a good education, but in this part, to train people, also in companies, to train people at schools, high schools, on this digitalization, even more with new methodologies, I think there are big gaps. And therefore, I'm also asking and let's say, pressing to the governments, also yesterday evening, that there should be even more investments in high schools, but also in Gewerbeschulen and all the others, and to create this, let's say, learning effect, because this is really a base for the success of the future.
So it's about the digital vision, and it's about taking all the people with us on the journey.
And if you don't train your customers, they will not even buy products, digital products from you or systems, because they do not understand it. So I think training as a company, as Festo does with their customers, is also a way how to sell products, because people know to use the products.
I think that's excellent. We may have a few minutes left for questions from the audience. Eva has a microphone. I think you're not going to get this panel very, very soon together again.
Thank you very much. My name is Ray. I'm an innovation manager from Oldenburg. I have a question to Professor Kagemann. You have showed the paradigm shift from smart Service Welt to the autonomous systems in your presentation. So how we as German industry, especially in ICT industries, should start innovating according to this shift from smart service world to the autonomous systems? Because there is an element of KI platforms, global value chains, and perhaps Professor Wallster might have also some remarks about that. Thank you.
Yeah. Indeed, our point was that we see this need not only in Industry 4.0, I mentioned. We see it in the car industry, as you know. It's the most famous one, where all our large OEMs are investing significantly in AI talents. We see it in smart home and in other areas. So therefore, we look to the picture more from autonomous systems isolated, because the implications are across all these topics. it's about shortage of skills. Wolfgang will speak about it. We are very strong in certain areas. We are very weak in others. But that's up to Wolfgang later on. But the other point is this has a societal impact, a big one. So when I give speeches these days at the end, in particular in Asia, I point out it's not so much only about, let's say, standardization and interoperability on a technological level. If you come to autonomous systems, you know it's about moral and ethical questions. Just think about autonomous cars. And the question will be, in a final stage, let's say, can we create alternative, let's say, autonomous systems which behave after different ethical frameworks in different cultures, or we can come to a kind of interoperability on this level, which is a very sophisticated but needed question in the future, because more and more of the system will be autonomous, and people forget this implication. Because if you sit down and if you define the rules, for example, for autonomous cars, as we have done in the commission from the government, at the end you start with the, I would say, with the culture, with the Western culture. And if you accept the Western culture, you come to solutions. If you don't accept the Western culture, you come to different solutions, which you have to program partially differently. That will be a challenge, and therefore I believe we have to use this, let's say, beyond the context of just smart service world, across, I think, all aspects where autonomous systems play a role.
I think that is really the way to, we can't stand still. We have to always push the envelope, and that's autonomous. We have time for a second question. Here's one.
Hi, Barry Heiser. I had a question for Mr. Veit. And you said that implementing a culture from the top down, from the CEO down, which pretty much would encompass the entire organization. What I missed was how, when you convince these CEOs that the digitalization is going to be beneficial, what type of timeline do you give them? Because most people want to see, when will I have results from this? When is this going to pay off for me? What is the numbers in terms of a timeline that you give them?
First of all, that's an excellent question, because that's really how strong should be the pressure to a company to have this cultural journey to digitalization. And I think it's different from companies to companies. I'm in a company, in a supervisory board, which is a company Zeiss, for example, and we have put a lot of pressure because we think that the business model is changing very rapidly. Therefore, we press them to do it in 2 to 3 years to have a digital agenda. My former company was pressed to the digital agenda also very rapidly, because we have, I can just give you an example about a milking robot. A milking robot was done, by the way, a big business, 3-digit million turnover in milking robots. This was sold 100,000 euro, and from one to the other day, the customer said, no, we want to pay per liter milk, per examination of medical check of the cows and so forth. So it was a change from one to the other day. And some companies, I think it's let's say, very long lasting. But to be prepared, I think minimum in 5 years from today, a lot of companies have to be changed completely. And I think also the remuneration systems of the big bosses, of the CEOs, should be adapted also now, starting in the background, not seeing figures, but seeing that they are changing the culture in the company. So between 3 and 5 years, if you want to get a figure in the machine and bow or electronic industry.
Well, that brings us to the end of the panel. 3 to 5 years. That's not a lot of time if you think that the engineering cycle for one new product release is typically 3 to 5 years. And the session was new revenues in industry, so digital smart services. And I think we heard today, we can do it in Germany. We can do it with our lead industries. We can do it with our lead companies. It's about having the right vision outside of the box, the platforms, the new business models, the ecosystems, getting started massively, building a digital factory, taking the people with you, cultural change, and then don't be too impatient, because we have to build the new while we're running the old. Big round of applause for our digital experts on stage.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And this brings us basically to our next speaker. And we have some seats in the front. Come on, you don't need to stand. Because one thing which was always at the core, come on team, we have a little bit of a shuffle now. But there's a lot of space in the front rows. And we'll just take the few seconds needed to do that. Can we get to the next slide, please? You know, we are talking about the business-to-business place, but we're talking about business-to-business to consumer. Because at the end of the day, regardless what we build, there are people operating our products. And it's all about the new experience. That is one of the 3 elements of the new formula. Smart products, smart services, new experiences. And we need new thinking to create new experiences. And that is, I think, the best way to introduce Mathis Schrader. Mathis, if you come on stage. Mathis, you are one of the thought leaders who thinks about new experiences for the German industry. You have written a book, Transformationale Produkte. Well, looking forward to hear from you. What is this book about? What are your thoughts about? Where's the German industry going? Mathis Schrader.
Okay, thank you, Frank. And good morning. I'm very happy to be here. We heard a lot of things this morning about B2B, smart service, and so on, and I'm the B2C guy, and I hope at the end of the day I'm not the Don Quixote here at the conference. So Frank mentioned it. The title of the book is Transformationale Produkte. It's also translated in English, Transformational Products. And to be honest, the first idea to title this book was Transformational Services. But in Germany, services always have an ambivalent feeling, a mixed feeling, because in Germany services is called Dienste or Dienstleistung, and we are product guys and physics guys, and so it's not so easy to write a successful book with services. So I was convinced from my consultants that we have the title Transformational Products. But I want to start. So we have a bit latency here because I want to start to talk not about smart services first, but I want to talk about what are services and why are services so sexy today. So, and there is a famous quote from Nicolas Negroponte, and he wrote a book in 1995, Being Digital. And he was the first author who dotted the lines between services, products, and digitalization. And he said that the future of our industry is driven by the ability to render our products and services in a digital form. And in the same year, another young man, the wunderkind Marc Andreessen, created the Netscape Navigator. This was the first web browser and the first transformational product, because with the web browser he transformed the text-based and command line-centric internet in something completely new, in the popular B2C medium, interactive medium we all know. And in his second career as one of the most successful venture capitalists with Andreessen Horowitz, he make this famous quote that he said that software is eating the world. And this is now his mantra, to invest in new startups and new companies. But as consumers, we did not interact directly with software. We interact with interfaces, with experiences, in short, services. So I think the better quote is, services are eating the world. And to demonstrate this and to show what this means, I bring an example. I think everyone here in this room knows that's Amazon Prime. And when we look deeply in the Amazon Prime experience, what we see, the first is what every transformational services or every transformational products do is that it transforms user expectations. In the case of Amazon Prime, it's about to deliver every product with a barcode in the world, next day, next hour, same hour. So think about it, every product with a barcode. So it's raising the bar of our expectation every year higher and higher. So it's a form of priming our brains to this kind of services. And the second thing is that Prime as a service transform user behavior. So it's about when you look how the conversion KPIs are looking at Amazon Prime. When you look to a normal e-commerce retailer, then you have a conversion from website visit to checkout maybe by 2%, sometimes 1%, sometimes 3%, but the median is 2%. In the case of Amazon Prime, it's over 70%. It's 35 times higher than the normal retail e-commerce site. So we can say that Amazon is a service supplier. It's a service to organize things for you and to deliver things to you, but it's not a retailer. They sell nothing. 70% conversion means that the product is pre-sold in your brain, and then you go to Amazon, and then you pull the product through the value chain. And the third thing, what transformational services like Amazon Prime do is that they transform how value is added to the user. And for example, when you look to physical products like the Amazon Kindle or the dashboard or Amazon Echo, then it's not about to deliver the product next hour or same hour, it's to deliver the product in the same second. So and the role of physics and of atoms is transforming because it's only the manifesto, the manifestation of a service. So hardware has a complete new role in all these cases. And when we zoom out and when we say that Amazon is eating the e-commerce, the retail industry, maybe not for breakfast, maybe for lunch, and we zoom out to other industries and look what is the benchmarking between the top 20 DAX companies by market cap in relation to the service dominant players in the market in the last 10 years, then we see a massive decoupling of the world of the service dominant players, the Google, Apples, Facebooks, Amazons, and Microsofts on the one side, and on the other side, the German industry. It's a huge decoupling in the development. And so the key question is, what is the core difference between the service dominant players and the traditional production-driven logic we see as an operating model in our business economy? And the answer is, it's all about the value chain. When you take a look to the traditional production driven value chain, then it's a linear process. We see the R&D process, procurement, manufacturing, marketing and sales, and of course, after sales. And it's a complete market-centric mindset. We come from the market. What needs the market? What can we buy from the market? What we can push to the market? And it's all about incremental optimization. And when we look to the service dominant players, so the Googles, Apples, Facebooks, Amazons, and so on, but also for the Booking.coms and for the Ubers and all these new guys, then the value chain is a loop. It's a completely new paradigm shift. The value chain is now a loop. And it's all about, of course, service experience. But when we look to the end of this loop, it's interesting too. For example, how looks the go-to-market strategy for new services? Yeah, it's more a diffusion process. It's not that when you think about how you discover Google or Facebook or Amazon.com, you haven't seen a TV spot 10 years or 15 years ago, what you have seen is that somebody said, here's a new service, try it. You try the new service, and you try the second, and then you're addicted to these kind of new services. So there's a completely other go-to-market strategy. And we talk about how many years we need to establish these kind of services. The problem is that in diffusion processes, it's always an S-curve. And the first years, you see nothing. There's a famous quote from Jeff Bezos, and he said, all of our overnight success, we worked 10 years for them. So you need a long time with small revenues, with small sales, to build huge products. And on the other side, you see the co-creation. And what co-creation means, it's not the co-creation to invent new things. It's that the user is part of the value chain. There is no Google without the user. There is no Facebook without the user. But there's a Mercedes without the user. There's a Volkswagen without the user. So there's a huge difference between to co-create value with users and without in the traditional value chain. So what we can say is it's not a market-centric mindset we need. We need a user-centric. So this is very complicated when you shift from market-centric to user-centric, because all what we learn in the business schools are market-centric, with a rationale to identify what is good for the market, what we can do to have a good feeling about the market size. Okay, my mic, thank you. So it's a completely different approach to create value. So this is the one side of the equal, the services, and the other side is smart. And when we look again to this value chain, the loop of this value chain, then we have 5 pillars. What means smart for us? The first is scale, mental logins, APIs, radical value, and transformational. And when we take a look to scale, what this means, it's obviously that in the software business there's no local software business. Software works only at scale, mostly on the global scale, but there are, of course, other big economies like China that maybe have a threshold that there works inside China, but you need scale. And especially in Germany, there will be no local software market in Germany. It's always a global game. But the main point is here that when you have a value loop and you integrate the user in your value chain, you create an ecosystem. And with an ecosystem, you have network effects. And in networks, you know this, that always the winner takes it all. And so there's always a pressure to grow fast and to scale fast. And there's another point. When we look historical to our technology history, then we see that the PC, the personal computer, needs 20 years in the German market to have 20 million users. And the web needs 15 years to reach 40 million users. And the smartphone, established with the iPhone 2007, needs only 10 years to reach 70 million users. And when we look to the next S-curves that are coming, for example, IoT or AI, then the prediction is, of course, that we have another time compression from 10 years, maybe to 5 years. So we have to scale very fast. The second point is mental logins. The trick of the service dominant players is always that they conquer one critical use case in your everyday life. For example, search with Google, buying books with Amazon, or to call a cab with Uber. And it's they need only 1 minute or 2 minutes of your life, of your everyday life. And when they have this 1 or 2 minutes, they have a login with G, but they have always a login with CK, and then they can expand their services from, for example, for Google, from search to photos to mail to maps and so on. So they closed the 24-hour circle. Third, APIs. We had a lot of things about APIs, the connections between the communication connections between services, but there's another point and another aspect what is very interesting with APIs. When you look how production-driven companies innovate, then you see that the bigger the companies are, the slower the innovation cycle is. So there are some hacks, for example, digital labs and digital factories to mitigate this, but the rule is the bigger the company, that the slower is the innovation cycle. And in service-dominant companies like Amazon, you have the reverse effect. They are bigger and bigger, and they are faster and faster to innovate. Why? Because they have APIs in their organization. So they have small teams, and they communicate not in a command and control way, they command with APIs. Because all teams work with the same software stack, with well-designed APIs, and so every new team with 10 people stands on the shoulders of their other guys that invent the last 10 years the service ecosystem, or for example Amazon, and then they are very fast to create new services and to roll out and to test these new kind of services for the users. And there are a lot of services, billions of users use every day, and then you look to the teams and how big are the teams, and you say eight people run services for billion of people. That's the true in Google and Amazon, Microsoft, and all these kind of service dominant players. They use APIs as an organizational pattern inside. So it's not only a software topic. The fourth thing is radical value. I think you have heard maybe about you have to create radical value proposition 10 times better, and so on and so on. Maybe you have asked why 10 times. And the answer is because we are human beings. And our brain is connected to the outside world via our senses. And our senses, like our ears or our eyes, work logarithmically. That means when the technician here in the back office pushed the volume per 100%, then it's a bit louder, maybe 10%. You cannot say it exactly. But to change your behavior, to change, for example, your bookseller, you need more than these 100%. You will never change your bookseller when your local bookseller have 200,000 books instead of 100,000 books, because you have not the time to number all these books. But when you see a new bookseller that go from 1,000 to 1 million books, or that you have to wait only 90 seconds for the next cab and not 15 minutes, then you switch the vendor. So as human beings, we need a radical value proposition, and it has to be something about 10 times to change our behavior. And of course, products have to be transformational. That means I demonstrate this with the Amazon Prime case. Transformational products transforms our expectation to a product or to a product segment, change our behavior, and it added new value for us in the value chain. So these are the 5 key characteristics we see in smart services. It's all about scale, mental lock-ins, APIs, radical value, and transformational agenda. And when you go deeper in this value loop, you will see there's other points and other characteristics, but it's I have not the time to describe all these kinds. But the good message is there's a book for this, and when you swap your business card, we will send you a book later to this conference. Thank you.
Martis. Hey, Martis, you stay on stage. But, well, we can use a microphone, huh? Martis, you know, you are thinking through, actually, the industry from the experience side, and you used Amazon Prime to show how a new experience in 2 minutes of your life, go register, become an account, and suddenly you can do things you couldn't do changes the business model, and in the case of Amazon, scales to become one of the largest platforms in the world. Now, you know, we have been all on the digital Silicon Valley safari. We look at the Amazon, the Google, the Apple, and Facebooks, and then we conclude this stuff is so far away from our business models in Germany. So you are working with the leaders of the German companies. What is it, when it comes to new experiences, German CEOs should be doing in their business models? What is your advice?
I think it's not only the topic of business models, because it's a hard topic, because you have the pressure from the financial markets when you're a public company and so on. But what I think it's very important, we talk about this, we heard this about in the last 2 hours, it's always a game from top to down. But the key question is, where's the top of the pyramid? And is the top of the pyramid the CEO? Of course, but maybe more the chief experience officer, not the chief executive officer.
What is a chief experience officer? What does a chief experience, actually, who has a chief experience officer in your company, in the audience? Do you have one? That is about 0 hands up.
Why I say this? Because I think in the next wave of management, the next wave of companies, we will see that the shadow CEO of the company is the user. And this is hard to implement. How you go from a product-driven, centric mindset to a user-centric mindset. So and you need something to install in your board that the user is part of the conversation.
You know, let's get practical. I know you're working with a lot of the large automotive companies in the country. What is a new experience when it comes to my car, to a brand? What is it they should be doing different? Because I think many in the country are getting it intellectually, but they don't know what to do.
Yes, but first to make your homework. For example, you buy a car for 80,000 euros, and then you have a key, but you have no login to something like My Car, to configure the car, to get information, to install new apps in the car, and so on. So there's a divide between the digital space and the physical space, and you have to bridge this space. This is I think it's the homework you have to do. It's absolutely necessary.
So
maybe 5 years ago.
So I have an app, and I start the heating system of my car when I'm in the living room.
Yes, but that's not no science fiction. I think it's absolutely something of a keen that you have this. And then when you have this, then you can set up and you can widen the scope to new services and new business models.
Yeah. You talked about scale, you know, and we are looking at the platforms. How can the German business model scale? What is examples you're seeing where you say, yeah, this is going the right direction? How do you drive scale in our country?
I think we are luckily, we have a lot of export-driven companies in Germany, and that we have to think in software, we have to think in ecosystem, we have to think in platforms, and we have to, and our ambition level has to be so high that we roll out our services and our platforms worldwide. The reality is today that often local markets have their own systems and their own processes and their own dealer and client relationships, and we need to build truly global platforms and ecosystems for the German industry.
So basically you say for us as a product-based country, industries which are manufacturing products, you say make them digital, close the gap on the digital divide so you can be with digital services, with your product while you operate it, and then you basically say use the ecosystem to add services which give you new experiences, and that is around the world.
Yes, because every physical product has a digital service layer, and the service layer it's the more in the future the more value part of this whole solution, and so we have to invest in this service layer.
You know, another question is, you know, we are struggling in Europe with identity. We are struggling with the digital identity. If you look at GDPR, it is a very restrictive regulation for everybody, but what is it we need to do to capture the identity of our customers? Because if you don't know with whom we are dealing with, how can we basically service them? So What are good examples you're seeing on creating a digital identity which links the customer to my product?
I think identity management is not a technology
Yeah.
part. It's to create and to deliver value for the users. When you look to Google and Facebook, they never ask, give us your email address. So they first deliver the service, the better search experience, the better stream and social stream, and then they need for this service your ID.
To hyper-personalize.
But in Germany, we have a new passport, and you have to give your identity and your login, and you create no value. Why?
So
You have
basically
no answer
say
to it.
leave
You
the services,
Yes,
And
you have to deliver services and
engage the
value.
customer,
Yeah.
and once they engage, they will reveal the identity because they want something from you.
Yes.
I'm waiting for my first app on my car. Maybe we have 1 or 2 questions from the audience. We have 2 or 3 minutes left. Do we have a question here? And I just going to use a mic to do that dynamically. Oh, here's one. Matthias, you... Yeah.
Hi, I just have a quick question. All of your examples are the big players using Facebook and Google and Amazon. How would you suggest the smaller players compete with these behemoths?
I think there's always a possibility to compete because, of course, it's not a good idea to create a new search engine these days and to create a new retail shop these days like Amazon. But I think there are a lot of innovation in the market. Look to blockchain, AI. I think it's a huge opportunity to link new digital service layers to our physical assets we have in the German industry. So I think this is our advantage. All the players start without physical assets. They're asset light or asset less, and we are asset rich. And what we have to do is to combine these capabilities. Yes, the physical assets. So the best car plus the best digital experience, the best product in industry X plus the best digital service. So this is, I think this is a winning combination. And you see this with Tesla. It's not easy to produce and to manufacture at scale physical products. So, but we have to combine this.
All right, we have time for 1 second question.
Yeah. Hi. My question kind of ties into the gentleman's question there as well. My thing is that in terms of the German big players, we're always looking to Amazon, we're looking to Jeff Bezos, and we can't really use them as a measurement of what we can achieve within Europe. My question is, are you aware of any initiative which kind of focuses on the German rock stars in terms of the digital revolution, so that we can look to them as a measurement of what we can achieve here and not always look across the pond into the $100 billion companies?
Yes, of course. So we have I think first of all, we have a lot of positive examples in Europe. So we have, for example, Booking.com in the tourism industry. But on the other side in Germany, we have something like Zalando or Diepel.com in the translator business. It's maybe better than Google Translate. So there are a lot of hope, and I think we have a lot of assets we can leverage in this space.
Excellent. So, Matthias, that concludes our session. I think when we read your book, you're really saying, let's, guys, in Germany, overcome the digital divide. Create digital services for your products, engage your customers with your products, and then basically you say, lead first with services, which creates demand.
Yes.
And once you have the demand, you know who is engaging, and you can hyper-personalize. They give you your identity. Ideally, they give you the payment authority, so you can provision services and you get paid for that. I think it sounds easy, but quite frankly, probably it is. It only has to be done. With that, Matthias Schrader, if you want to know more about Sinner Schrader, Going Digital with the German lead companies, I think, Matthias, that's your book, and that's you. Thanks a lot for that. Big round of applause. Thank you. And that brings us to the end of the first section. We will continue in 15 minutes because the power of the new business models is about data, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. It will revolutionize the industry. We have the best thought leader in Germany on stage in 50 minutes. Please come back. Thank you.